Hey all, welcome to my walkthrough of the different CTF room on TryHackMe. This room offers a pretty reliable challenge, though not all too difficult, so it's pretty accessible to those with at least intermediate knowledge. So to get started, before you do anything else, before you even start the machine, take note of the tags on the room. This gave me a headache because I was too stubborn to just take the step of courage required of me to break through the lab. So you'll notice a couple things. You'll see security, reverse, not all that of note. But you have two other ones here, Stego and Sucrack. Stego was pretty easy to figure out. There is a section revolving around steganography, but Sucrack is referencing a utility that the lab at least heavily incentivizes you use later on. So please keep Sucrack in mind. It will come up later and it will be important. All right, so to get started, let's go ahead and make a directory just called diff CTF. Let's make a loot folder as well. We'll probably get some stuff. Let us, you'll see I have two more tabs up here. I've done this room before, so I just wanted to have some space out of the way for me. So first we need to find how many ports are open in our first task, basic scan. So you can do this by just using nmap. You can run this against all ports as it does want you to find how many ports are open. However, I can confirm to you that the only two ports that are open here are IANA registered ports. So uh, if you want to save yourself some time, much like I love saving myself some time, just go ahead and run that with the default options there. Let's go ahead and launch nmap against the address. This shouldn't take super long. You can also do what I did, which is just add the service version information. This will help a lot in a lot of CTFs, and generally just in any case you want to use nmap. This helps pretty substantially in helping you maybe get started on looking for services and versions that might be outdated so you can exploit them. So here we see we have two open ports, 21 FTP and port 80 HTTP. We have an Apache server running on that port. So that's two ports that are open on the target. Next, we need to find the name of the secret directory. So to do that, we can just enumerate the directories on the site using GoBuster. You can use dirbuster, you can use dirb, you can use litany of other utilities that do the same thing. I just like GoBuster because I like Golang and I like supporting Golang projects. So we'll use that. We will use I will use at least the share word lists dirbuster directory. Where is it? There it is. Medium. I normally run this one because it's generally pretty fast and it will get and hit most things. You certainly don't have to. I don't even think you need it for this lab. I just do this as a rule of thumb. And you can, you don't need to change the thread count at all. But certainly worth a shot and worth a go if you want things to go pretty well. We have a hit here, WP content. Looks like we are working with a WordPress CMS. Give me a second. I've noticed this being an issue with GoBuster as of late. Here we go. Boom. We have a couple more hits. WP includes, JavaScript, and /announcements. So I'll tell you, /announcements is what it is looking for in its secret directory. This is something that I've found myself disliking generally in a lot of CTFs is they'll ask very vague questions that don't really indicate what they want. So if you just want to go ahead and enumerate through the directories and then match the answer to anything that has the same character count in it, that's what I did. It'll probably work. And in this case, it's kind of really your only option because asking for a secret directory isn't really a helpful hint as to what they're looking for. You'll also see we hit PHP my admin. So again, this is WordPress. It is running MySQL. So that will end up being useful knowledge in the future. You can go ahead and stop GoBuster now, or Derb, or Durbuster, or whatever solution you used. As long as you get /announcements, you'll get everything you need for the time being. All right, task 2, localhost. This place will be solved from inside after receiving a shell, which is some wonderfully crafted English there. So first we need to find the web flag. So let's go ahead and get started by just actually visiting our web page here. Let's go to that directory, announcements. And there's actually 2 resources here. We have Australian Bulldog ant.jpg and wordlist.txt. So keep in mind, once again, the tags in the room. One of them was Stego. So that is a pretty big hint as to what's coming next. So let's go ahead and CT into loot, CD into loot, my apologies, and we'll wget both of those. We'll just get announcements / Australian Bulldog ant.jpg. I also could have totally just copied the address, which I probably should have. As I see, I forgot an I. Australian Bulldog ant and wordlist.txt. All right. So if we want to try and find some steganography information, we can go ahead and extract SF Australian Bulldog ant. Looks like we need a passphrase. So this is where that word list comes in, and a tool known as StegSeek. You could also use StegCracker, and I believe there are a couple other utilities you could use to do this. I used StegSeek to do this just because it's fastest. So if you want to go ahead and crack that open, shouldn't be all that difficult. So just go ahead and specify the file. So we want to specify Australian Bulldog ant, and then what we'll want to do is we will want to find our word list, and we can dump it. You don't have to, but actually no. Yeah, you should dump it. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, you'll probably want to reference what hits in the future. So there you go. We found passphrase, original file name, and extracting to dump.txt. So actually, no, never mind. You do need to dump it. Actually, I'm being silly. So now what we want to do is we want to check that dump file, and that is in base 64. So let's go ahead and decode that. And we have an FTP login. If you remember, FTP was a service that was open that we found from Nmap. So let's go ahead and log in to FTP. Con FTP. That password was 123 Adana crack. Nice. So let's list everything here in this directory. We have announcements, as we saw earlier, index.php, license.txt, readme, bunch of nonsense. So let's see if we can upload anything. Let us echo hello into greet. Excuse me? Oh. Whoops. I did not notice that I used double quotes right there. That's why that happened. So if you see here, greet.txt. Let's just go ahead and put greet.txt. I think, oh, you know what? We might be in our wrong directory. Yeah. We never went to different or CTF that directory. So let's go ahead and do that again. Con FTP, 123 Adana crack, and then put greet.txt. Nice. Let's go ahead and change mode greet.txt. And let's see if we can get that. So let's curl HTTP /greet.text. So we're hit with a 404. So that is interesting. So what that means here is that it could mean a couple things. It could mean that from whatever user we're on, we're actually not able to um, uh, present any content from this particular directory. As you'll find out, that actually does seem to be the right answer, as this directory is a different one from the one we're actually seeing. And I'll explain that in a bit more detail in a minute. So if you remember that GoBuster search we did, right at the end, we saw that phpMyAdmin was present on the web server here. So let's go ahead and get wp-config not text.php, and I'll move that into loot. We'll move ourselves into loot as well. Go ahead and run vim, check it out. And right here, MySQL settings, you can get this info from your web host, the name of the database for WordPress. We have database name is phpMyAdmin1, database user phpMyAdmin, and a database password of 12345. So let's go ahead and check that console, phpMyAdmin. All right, remember our username right there, phpMyAdmin, and that password was 12345. All right. So we actually have access to the phpMyAdmin console, and we can go through and look through the tables and database here to try and find any information that might help us. All right, so you'll see here in this table here, we have phpMyAdmin and phpMyAdmin1, or this database. These are two databases, and each have several tables in them. We see in WP options, we have option name, site URL, option value, adana.thm, home, adana.thm. If we check this other database here with the same table, WP options, you'll see up here site URL, subdomain.adana.thm, and home subdomain.adana.thm. So that seems to be an indication of what might actually be occurring. And so the directory we found in our FTP server, or where we're getting sent to with the FTP server, it might actually be for this subdomain instead of the adana.thm domain, which is our address. Or the subdomain would be the address that's defaulting to. So let's go ahead and edit our hosts file. So vim etc hosts, and we'll add that address, and we'll add adana.thm, and remember subdomain.adana.thm as well. Right quit. All right, go back. So let's curl the same one again. We'll just actually use the host name this time to demonstrate and just make sure that that's all working correctly. THM greet.text. Hello. Nice. So that did seem to be the case. It seems like this FTP server is actually for this subdomain and all of the resources in its parent directory, as opposed to adana.thm, or wherever our default or the IP address was just defaultedly being sent to. So that actually seems to solve our problem for the time being. I'm very silly. I said for the time being. That solves our problem. I'm running on fumes at the moment, so you'll have to bear with me for a bit. So now we know we can update this FTP server here with files of our own. Greet.text was an example. When we curled it, we got the response of hello. So this seems like a pretty decent entry point for a reverse shell. So there are a couple ways you could do this. I did this using Meterpreter, MSF Venom. You could also just use the default PHP reverse shell present on Kali in user share, I think web shells PHP reverse shell, or user share laudanum PHP reverse shell is the other one, I believe. I went with, again, Meterpreter and using MSF Venom, so that's what I'll show. However, I did also test using the user share laudanum PHP reverse shell, so that also works. So you could just copy that and put it here, and you can upload that directly. So to start MSF Venom, get our payload going, let's start call MSF Venom, set our payload, PHP, PHP. Oh no, Interpreter. Sorry, I'm thinking PHP reverse shell from laudanum. Reverse TCP. Our host should be what is it? 10, 13, 39.111. Yours will be different depending on your connection to TryHackMe. L port will set to 4444. You can set it to anything as long as it's not being used. And we'll just call this shell.php. So go ahead and give that a minute. Normally MSF Venom takes a second to create the payload that we will upload, again using FTP. So now let's put shell.php right in there. Nice. Change mode, shell.php. So now we need to start MSF console and actually get Meterpreter up and going. This will take a minute, so I will pause and come back when Metasploit has finished uploading or finished loading. All right, Metasploit is done. The MSF framework console is all up and running, so let us use multi-handler. All right, we will set lhost to 10.13.39.111. Again, this will be different for you. Set lhost, or no, lport was 4444, and set payload will be php/meterpreter. Forgot tab completion is a little funky. There we go. Reverse TCP, and we will say exploit. Next, we will just curl. Same area, but instead of greet, we'll say shell.php, enter. It's hanging, which is a good sign, and we have connected. Hit shell. Who am I? All right, we are system user www data. Nice. We have entered into the machine. So if we poke around here, we'll see that we have shell.php, just like we uploaded, greet.txt. We'll also see, if we print working directory, /var www or /subdomain. So if we go back, you actually see there are two. There's HTML and subdomain. Now, before we go any further, I just realized this this shell is a little not excellent. When I was better at being a elite hacker, I remembered this command off the top of my head. But this should work. I think when I did this the first time, I used Python 3, but Python 2 seems to run on here as well, so this should work just fine. If you don't know what this is doing, all this is doing is it's just making our shell a little prettier, easier to navigate. Using Python, it'll just spawn a new bash instance for us. There we go, www data at Ubuntu in the /var www directory. So again, we have HTML and subdomain. So let's go ahead and look in HTML. And if we look in here, we see, yeah, exactly. Greet.txt, shell.php, neither of those were present in this directory. And between that one and this, we'll just do ls subdomain. You also look here. Yeah, everything between these two directories seems to be almost exactly the same. If we go here, we can do http adana.thm. You'll see hello world. If we go to subdomain, see another simple WordPress site, but when we get there, it says, welcome to WordPress is your first post, editor, delete it, then start writing, just like the last one. But it now references Hakonbe. If you remember when we logged into FTP, the FTP username was a Hakon FTP. So both sites seem to be grabbing from a different area, presenting similar but different content. And as you'll see in here in HTML, there is one file that is different, excluding the ones we uploaded ourselves, from subdomain, and that is here, webflag.txt. So let's go ahead and read that. And we have our first flag. Pretty self-explanatory. So there you go, web flag. Now we get to move on to the part that gave me a migraine. So if you remember at the beginning, I mentioned that the tags for the room are very, very important to the room itself. And this is something that I did not take into account. And I was a fool and spent my afternoon banging my head against tables and walls and whatever flat surface that was hard and painful I could get my hands on because I did not read the tags. So one of those tags was sucrack. Sucrack is a utility for cracking local user accounts on Linux, cracking the hashes for those accounts. So the problem is that I did not think that's where the CTF was going. And sucrack here, this is again, this is a substantial hint for that, and I did not think to look at it. I didn't even think I would have to do what it was expecting me to do, and there are myriad of utilities to do the same thing that sucrack does, but this is the one that it specifically references. So again, you don't have to use sucrack, but I will demonstrate that now, as that's the tool that was directly referenced in this room. So to get sucrack, let's go ahead and we can Command or Control C here. Doesn't matter, even though it's hanging. No content presented. We're not going to lose our interpreter shell at all. And we will grab it. So it's git clone. Actually, I will show you the GitHub page. Actually, just sucrack GitHub. We'll just grab it from there. Here's the page. You can go to code, copy for HTTPS, and git clone HTTPS github.com hempel sucrack.git. Easy. All right, now let's compress that really quick. CZVF, yeah. And then we will source sucrack.tar.gz into sucrack. Easy peasy. Now what we want to do is we want to upload that via the FTP server. Again, this isn't the only way you could do it, but it's a reliable way. And we will do the whole GZ file. And this took me a minute, but again, this is relevant information. You'll also want to put the word list. Let me just copy that actually. Copy loot. Ugh. Oops. Loot word list.txt here. We'll also put the word list here as well. As again, the utility sucrack really isn't gonna do a whole lot if there's nothing to run against, if there's no actual words or word list to actually enumerate through. And let's go ahead and change mode 777 both of those. You don't have to, obviously, but it will make your life a little easier. And we are done on that front. Now we will go back, move to subdomain. Again, you'll see here, right there, and right there, word list. So we will move these now into the temp directory. So we can say source sucrack.tar.gz into /temp. Same. All right. and then we will move wordlist.txt into /temp as well. So let's go ahead and move to the temp directory. So from here, this is where things are going to get a little weird. I've done this before several times, but if you haven't ever built and compiled a tool before, which I know a lot of people have not, even in this field, it is not nearly as scary as it sounds. We just need to extract the files and compile the tool, and it only takes a couple lines to get going. So now that we've moved everything into the temp directory, now what we get to do is the fun and long part to finally get into Hakan's account. Also, mind you, I do realize I forgot to mention this. If you look at the home directory, you'll find that the only home directory here for a regular user is Hakanbe, which indicates to me that that is the account that we need to move into. So just if that wasn't clear, that is why I am moving on to the steps that I am currently doing. All right, so first we want to extract the data here. So we will tar xfz and source sucrack.tar.gz. Nice. Then we will cd sucrack. And in here, conveniently, is a file called compile. If you can take a wild guess what that's going to do, or not compile, sorry, configure right here. Ignore that. Configure. That's going to do all of the heavy lifting for us. And finally, we can build it, run make, easy. Now, everything should be done and in order, and sucrack should finally be built, and we can probably now use it. Remember, the user we're going for is Hakanbe. So the syntax for it is sucrack, tacu for user, Hakanbe, tacw, 100 word list, as that's our word list. The 100, I do not remember why this is used. It has something to do with the, I believe the buffer for the threads. I can quickly research that in a second, just to clarify any confusion. Yeah, so all it's doing is it's just setting the threads. So if we go ahead and run /sucrack on Hakanbe, enter. Yes. Whoops. Let's move. Here, and let us go ahead and do that again. Give me one moment. I see what I did. I forgot to move into source, so there actually wasn't a file I was looking for called sucrack. So you'll, if you run this, you'll notice it'll take a minute, and unfortunately, this will not actually get any hits. So I will show you how to actually do that, because it is a little silly, but it does make sense. So if you remember, two of the previously discovered passwords that we discovered were prepended with 123 Adana. So this is the next step that I took. So I used awk to prepend 123 Adana to every single line in the word list that we have. So I did not come up with a solution myself. I knew that that was the way I wanted to do it, but I'm not particularly great at using awk, and I did not want to use sed because sed's a nightmare. So I found a thread on a server fault that I'll show here, where this was mentioned. This exact command right here, awk print your string of choice and then the position. So I got it from here. Not my solution. All credit to this thread here. All right, so to do the operation that I alluded to, we're going to use awk. Again, there's a ton of ways you could do this. This is just how I did it. So awk print, and remember we want to prepend it with 123 Adana, and then on the first position on word list dot text, and we'll output that to word list, I don't know, 2 dot text. Now finally let's go back to source slash sucrack one last time on Hakan Bay, word list, threads, oh, actually, no, right, because we are in source. Now we want to go back and reference word list 2.text. I could have totally just moved it here, but here we are. And now sucrack will run. Give that a bit of time. If this works the way it should find Hakan Bay's password based on the hash found in the shadow file. Please gracefully ignore the evident passage of time on the bottom right. But yes, we have our password of 123 Adana Subaru. So, easy as that, we can just log into Conbay's account, password 123 Adana Subaru, and we are logged in as Hakanbay. Nice, so let's go ahead and just change directory to his home directory, and cat user.txt right there, because that's the only file we have here, and we have our second flag. Ignore that, that's not true. That happens with TryHackMe every now and then. We have our second flag right there, our user flag. And now we are on to our final root flag, which is leagues easier to obtain than the one we just did was. So I'll save you some of the trouble. If you want to try and do this yourself, you're welcome to, but there are a couple steps you can take that fortunately didn't take me super long to get through. So first, what I did is I just tried to see if there was any special permissions we had that we could try. Remember, if we input our password, we get, oops, sorry, user Hakanbay may not run sudo on Ubuntu. Bummer. But that does not mean all hope is lost. Just because we can't change privileges to the root user does not mean that we are unable to escalate our privileges as of yet. So you could try and find maybe files with their sticky bit set, but that might take a hot minute, as it did me on this machine. I'm not super certain why it took nearly as long as it did. I know it'll take often a bit of time, but it took an inordinate amount of time. It might also just be limited resources. This is just some VM on a cloud, in the cloud. So that all makes sense. So what we can instead do is we can just go to where binaries and executables will be. We go in here. We can ls tac l long format, so we can actually see everything here. But what might be more pertinent and important here is looking for files that we can actually access and we can execute, and that we know we will have permission to, and that might have the sticky bit set. So what we can do here is we can actually do find tech group Hakan Bay here. I see what I did. Give me a second. So I very, very foolishly just put things around. So you actually want to put what you're finding, your starting point, as your first argument from find, and then we can do group Hakan Bay, because that is Hakan Bay's primary group. You'll find two files, find, or two binaries, find and binary. So let's see if we can run binary. Actually, let's quickly, just to demonstrate that this does have the sticky bit set, and we will grep, or just binary. You'll see here, right there, the sticky bit is set, so let's go ahead and run it. Binary. I think you should enter the correct string here. We try 123 Adana. Nothing. So this looks like a decent time to try and dig through this binary to see if we can maybe parse through the logic that's going through here, and hopefully maybe even find the string that is necessary to get the output of whatever this is executing. So let's go ahead and run strings on this, and then try that again. See that it's actually not all that many lines of code. I think if you just ran word count on it, yeah, it's only 108 lines of code. So it's not long at all, and it's pretty easy to parse through. You see here, I think you should enter the correct string here. You see we have hint.text, hint root.jpg, unable to open source, home convey root. See some logic going on here. As you'll see in a bit, what's going on here is that this is actually moving a couple files around that will be accessible to us upon actually finding the correct string. So we could debug. I believe GDB is on here. Do which? Nope, wrong one. GDB. See user bin and then ltrace. Ltrace is on here. We'll go with ltrace. Run here. You see, goes through the logic we have. Yep. Okay. So what's going on here is that it is slowly building together a string, which is why obviously we didn't just find the string just openly in our original output from strings. What's happening here is it's actually concatenating a bunch of different strings together to actually get our string together. So if we input Warzone right at the end here, Warzone in Adana, finishes, killed. So let's try that again. We'll do /binary, Warzone in Adana. Nice. Hint, hex editor at this position. And it looks like we might have a new file in our desktop. Hint, this actually isn't on the desktop. It is just in Hakan's home directory, I believe. Or no, right here. Yeah, no, never mind. It says Hakan desktop root.jpg and then just root.jpg here. So if you read this line, it actually doesn't matter. And right here, it references CyberChef, which will be important in a moment. So let's get to that. So once again, as you see in Hakan's in Hakan's home directory, we have a file now accessible, root.jpg. So let's go ahead and copy that into var www subdomain. Oh, whoops. Root.jpg into that directory. We can just copy that that directory right there. There we go. We will. It's logged out, so we will log back in. Hakan FTP 123 Adana crack. Nice, login successful. We'll list. Should be in here. We will get root.jpg. All right. As you can see, I was playing around with sucrack earlier. We have root.jpg right there. Let's go ahead and move that and delete. And let us reference again. It said right here, hint hex editor at this position. So we could just open the file, but I'd rather just jump straight into it. See what we have going on here. So ffd8ff. So this is a JPEG, undeniably. Well, not undeniably. You can absolutely spoof the signature here, but this does indicate that at least that shows that we're looking at a JPEG, if it's to be believed, and it is. But it says here on this position 20, we should have something to do with this whole line of hex data. So remember again, it did mention CyberChef right here. So it looks like we are going to have to go through a couple operations to get this going. So you could do it the very lazy way or the much, much easier way, but it doesn't matter however way you take it, because whichever way you do, it gets done. So let's go to CyberChef. Let's go ahead and copy that line there. Copy selection. CyberChef, we'll just input that right there. So we have, let's go ahead and make all the spaces equal, make sure everything's just for clarity. You don't have to do this at all, but again, just doing it for clarity. So we know we're working with hexadecimal data, so we can just say from hex, but that doesn't really help us. We don't know what we're supposed to be putting or applying as our next operation, or operations. It could be several. So you could do this the very silly way that I did it first, or you could do it the much smarter and faster way. And if you go here, you have one hint in the entire room, and this hint tells you from hex to base 85. Hex, we already know we're working with hexadecimal input, so we can just say from hex. But now we know that we have a different encoding scheme we have to work with. So instead of encoding, actually, you would want to go to data format, and all the way down here, you will see to base 85. So what I originally did was I actually started with data format, and I just went through several of these to see if that would pick up anything, and then I was going to move down. And fortunately, base 85 actually was the answer. And if you check that hint, again, it does confirm that you are looking to base 85. You put to base 85, you see root. Good job, bro. You have your root password, it seems. So if we go back to our interpreter session, and we sue root, input root's password, and list. Yep, we are root. Undeniably, we are the root user. So let's go ahead and change into our home directory. We have hint.txt, as was seen earlier, root.jpg, and root.txt. Concatenate root.txt, standard out, we get our final flag, the root flag, right at the end. So that is the different CTF room on TryHackMe. I quite liked it. It was fairly manageable. I did at one point look up a walkthrough to try and just figure out the syntax of sucrack that at least explained it. Unfortunately, the walkthrough I found didn't really explain it, but it did show a variant of the command that worked. And that also showed me the laudanum PHP reverse shell that I did not use. I did use Meterpreter instead, as you saw, but I was having trouble with the other reverse shell I was trying to use, so I will quickly just grab that to demonstrate and shout them out. I don't know why I'm saying shout them out. This will bring no traffic to anyone, but just for clarity's sake, on Penser.io, no author is listed, I believe, unfortunately. Yeah. But here, I used this write-up to clarify a couple things, and it was not particularly detailed, but it does go through the steps visually. So if that would rather help you in getting more context maybe into some of the process, that will be available. Thank you. Hope that was simple and easy. If you have any questions, feel free to comment, and I will answer as I see them.